You're listening to 101 with Tommie Zam. On the 46th episode, we sit down with Yossi Rodal talking about skateboarding and life. Let's do this. Hey Yossi, what's up? How you doing?
Hey Tommy, thank God, I'm great. How are
How,
you?
good, good. How's everything going?
Thank God. The rain. There's no bad weather. There's just bad clothing, right?
Right. I don't even know if I consider this rain that we have out here.
Right.
So, where are you originally from?
I am originally from Milan, Italy, born and raised in Italy.
That's cool, man. So, what was it like growing up in Italy?
It was really nice, genuine. Um, I had a great time. Like I'm part of a big family. We're 17 in a family, so there was always stuff happening at home. I absolutely loved the Italian warmth, the soccer, of course, just the love of life. We used to go in the summer, every summer in the south of Italy. That's like the real Italy. Milan,
Hmm.
where I grew up, is more like European. They're more stuck up. But I got both of best worlds. So I lived every summer for 3 months in the south, and that's where people really they don't have big aspirations, but they just live life. They're content, and I love that. I really love that time of the year, spending time with those people, and I love Italy. I love the fact that I'm Italian.
Oh, so you are an Italian Jew, correct?
Yeah, I mean it's funny. Like, do you say I'm Jewish Italian or Italian Jew? But I guess in the English language, Italian Jew makes more sense.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm Jewish and I'm Italian.
Oh, that's pretty rad. So you got like two different sides of culture, right? You have the Jewish culture and you have the Italian culture. So I mean, that's pretty rad to have.
Yeah, yeah. I'm being my mother is American, my father's Canadian, so I also grew up with that, knowing that culture, and
Hmm.
I've always been very proud of just the European history, like we've been around for a long time. So obviously, I'm extremely proud of my Jewishness. Um, but I love the fact that Italy has so much history, and I love history, and I brought my wife around Italy, like just going to Rome and Pompeii and all these. It's like you're going back in 2,000 years. So
Hmm.
I love that fact and I can see it in people's culture. Like Italians, they might not be the most honest people, but they're real, and I
Hmm.
feel like in America we're missing a bit of that, even though a lot of Americans are immigrants. Um, but I feel that sometimes there's a bit more superficiality to things. So I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree because I mean that's basically what America was built on was like immigrants. You know what I mean? Like our families coming over from, all over Europe or escaping like the Holocaust and stuff like that, coming over here. And that's what built America was immigrants. And I think a lot of people or generations forget where their family came from. Or don't realize like America is built on immigrants.
Yeah, yeah, it's really fascinating because like we all we all come from somewhere, even if people immigrated 300 years ago, 100 years ago, 50 years ago. We all like didn't grow up here, and I think it's one thing amazing about America is that people right away feel so at home and they feel like this is their place. So the good thing is that people feel at home and people feel that they belong. The bad thing is that they forget where they come from because they're so proud of being American that hey, you have thousands of years of history, and bring that culture, bring that you know genuine uh, love of life or whatever that is to this country. And I think sometimes we forget that.
Yeah, definitely do. A lot of people do, and you can tell too. Because they just don't realize like where they come from, or they do know, but they don't care.
Right.
And so growing up in so you and your 17 siblings, and that's crazy to have. I never heard anybody have 17 siblings. That's pretty amazing. So how did your parents know who's who? Did they like, you guys had to wear like separate clothes or what?
so so first of all, now that I have kids, I realize how insane having 17 kids is. It doesn't just happen. You have to really, have the intention to really. It's insane. Like I have 3 kids now, and I'm like, I don't know how in hell can you do that. 17 kids. And it's funny. Like people always ask me, like, how was it growing up? And people always imagine that, like, like dinner was the oldest one had like a big plate, and then the youngest one had like a really small plate. You have to understand, we there's almost 30 years between the oldest and the youngest, so
Mhm,
we didn't really grow up together. Like, I wasn't born yet at some of my siblings' weddings, so because I'm one of the youngest in the family. So so yeah, it's probably the most people, like kids and siblings we were together, was 10. And but all I remember, it was fun. You know I mean, I was in between girls. Like, I had 3 girls on top of me, 2 girls after me.
mhm.
But so I was always the cowboy, the husband, whenever we played games. But it just, my parents are just incredible, giving, genuine, real people. And it's incredible, insane how they did it. And because the most amazing thing is, it's not just they gave birth to 17 kids,
Mhm.
they nurtured every single one. And we see it even in with our kids, like their grandkids. Every grandkid feels that they're the only grandkids, like whenever they come and visit my parents. And the same thing with kids, like we all feel, unique and loved and appreciated for who we are. So it's not just having 17 kids, which is insane that in
Mhm.
itself, but it's the fact that we're still, really close to each other. We're like, you know yeah, support each other. So it's a huge blessing that I never take for granted.
And that's awesome to have. I mean, I already have like two siblings. My parents only have three kids, and they're all, they had three boys. So I mean, so you said you had sisters. So did you have like two older brothers or two brothers or what?
So 7 boys and 10 sisters.
Holy cow.
Yep.
your, your dad was like, holy gosh, thank you, Lord. Finally I
my,
got a boy.
my father always said, when people asked him, like, how did you do it, he said, I understand that I don't understand. Like Socrates says, right? I know
Yeah.
nothing. So he said, whatever God gave me, that's good. Like, when before we got married, my wife and I didn't think of going 17, but, like, hey, maybe 10, because, obviously my standard is pretty pretty high. But and then, we got complications, and you know it wasn't as easy as we thought. And in fact, it was really hard. So then, life changes, and you realize, okay, that's fine. Honestly, it's easier, not to have
Yeah.
10 kids. But it's God. Whatever God gives you, you're grateful for. And yeah, you give the kids that you have all that you have.
Yeah, that's right. And also too, I think at that time when your parents had kids or our parents have kids, times were different than it is now. You don't hear that many people of our generation or our era of having 17 or 20 kids or 10 kids. Usually they have like 1 to 3 and that's it.
Yeah, for sure. We definitely became much more like career oriented. And kids uh can be a burden most of the time. So people just like, okay, why should I have kids? And it's not really about, just continuing, you know our family, continuing our culture. But it's at the highest level, parenting it's a superpower. So, like, we can we God gives us this incredible power to raise kids, and to give to. So
Mhm.
I think people don't really value giving. They're much more focused on taking what life has to give them. So parenting is the best way to give.
Mhm. Yeah, that's pretty rad, dude. And also too, how did you? Because you're a musician yourself, correct?
Right.
Okay. And how did you grow up with music? Did your siblings or your parents were all musicians or into music or what?
Interestingly enough, like other than a few siblings like learning piano lessons, no one in my family was really like musical, like other than maybe doing harmonies, singing. Some of us have good voices. My parents both have good voices, but no one like took it really seriously. I was always fascinated by the piano, and loved listening to music growing up. But really, when it became much more of a thing, it was after my sister died.
Mm,
It was like a tool to process my pain.
mhm. Man, I'm sorry to hear about that. Because I mean, you have it's losing a family member or anything is like the most difficult thing. Like I lost my mom. Well, I lost my dad in 2017, and 4 years later, I lost my mom. 2021. So I mean, it's a really tough thing. To lose a sibling or a family member or anything.
For sure. Yeah, I didn't realize I was 12 when she died. She was 10. So
Hmm.
she was the one after me. And it took me years to realize how much, because I thought, I'm 12 years old. I don't really know what life is. I don't know what death is. Sure, I was sad, but like I missed her, but like I didn't know the extent, how much it impacted me. But I realized in 2020 when I finished writing a song about my journey with grief and growing without answers, so to speak, from my sister's death. Uh, I it took me 12 years to start therapy, and
Hmm.
realizing like, oh wow, that really, because, and that's another thing. Okay, I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, but I lost my father died like 4 months ago.
Oh, sorry to hear
So
about that, brother.
yeah, so that was another thing that really made me look at. I started reading this book last year before he died. It's called the Grief Recovery Handbook,
Hmm.
and it just made me realize how much, they say like we were taught how to acquire things, not how to lose them. And it's so true. Like we don't know what to do when we lose even, it doesn't have to be only death. It could be divorce, it could be loss of a job, it could be, I mean, how many people lost jobs in during the lockdown? And so
A
there's
lot.
so much grief happening every year, and we have no idea what to do. Like we just say, whatever, keep busy. Uh, uh, you know, time will heal. All time, time will do its thing, and it's so not true, because like the energy that the loss creates, it stays. It doesn't go away. It stays there. Either you can channel it in different ways, but if you don't channel it, it's gonna get out. It's like a kettle, right?
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
have the energy inside. If you put a cork and you just don't share it, you don't figure it out, it's gonna explode. After a while. So that's what happened with me. It just exploded, and a depression, and I finally, started therapy seriously, and I wrote a song about it. It's called Dry Tears, and that was start of a long journey.
Yeah, and then that's a beautiful song because I mean, that's definitely one of my favorite songs of yours that I like because because it has a lot of meanings to it, and then me losing my family, it makes me more appreciative of the song.
For sure. Yeah, I feel like music, like at its best, it just gives you the words, or it just gives you a voice,
Hmm.
something that someone that understands you, someone that feels, that makes you feel that, relates to you. So I think it's such a, I'm very thankful for it.
Yeah, and it definitely is. I mean, music is like what you said, 100%. And also too, music, you can be driving down the road or working or whatever, and it's just kind of like whatever you're listening to. To me, it's like meditation. You know what I mean? Because you're driving and you're focusing, and you have a good song that comes on, and it just puts you in that mind of meditation.
For sure. I mean, driving in general for me, it's like a meditation, because it's like, you're focused, but like it's a very, what you're doing. So it's some kind of a meditation, meaning driving itself is already a meditation. And then music, adding music to it, it's like, yeah, it's the best combo. I've so many times that I'm, you know, in a certain mood, or I'm in a certain frame of mind, and then the right song comes up, and then suddenly the words have a whole different meaning, than, because every day we're different. So
Hmm.
it's yeah, it's an amazing thing.
And I'm gonna go back a little bit. How old were you when you started playing music or performing, or you're starting like writing lyrics and stuff?
So I wrote my first song when I was 14. It was about my sister,
Hmm.
but didn't really, pursue. I mean, I kept playing guitar a little bit. I don't consider myself, a great guitarist. I just, do it for to perform, or maybe just, to write music, songwriting. Um, it was when I was 20 when it really started taking more of a serious, because I sold a couple songs to a music artist,
Hmm.
and then once I got married, I released my first song. My first single was called "Unspoken," and I slowly, nothing. I didn't have a big, I didn't have a manager. I didn't have a plan even. I just released a song, and then slowly people started getting me for performances, more like holiday performances, and because I didn't really, I was singing other people's music,
Hmm.
and then with time, just I mean, I released my first single January 2018.
Hmm.
In 2020, 2021 is really when, like, I started really getting more, traction.
Hmm.
And then, this past year has been really a boom. Like, I performed in South Africa, in LA, in Times Square in New York. So really, like, I realized, like, I always thought, like, I'm just gonna put out music, meaningful music, and then, hopefully it impacts people, and then, we'll see where it goes. I never thought of myself like of a performer, but the more I do it, the bigger venues, or just even intimate concerts, but I see how people really, get the energy from me, and just the songs, and so it's amazing now where it's going. So now this year I did a lot more inner work in terms of brand strategy, and really fine tuning my vision, and setting the steps to get to my goals. So yeah, started when I was 14. When I was 24, that's really when it started releasing music, original music, and then performing. And now
Hmm.
I'm 29, and the sky's the limit. I mean, thank God,
Oh,
I have very big plans.
it did, and that's awesome. Starting at 14. Going, coming from a family of 17, and starting writing music when you're at 14, and then and then it just develops and develops and develops, and that's pretty rad that you had that. You know what I mean? And was your parents very supportive of you being a musician and stuff?
um, they never really, in the beginning at least. Like, I was part of like a choir or something as a kid,
Hmm.
but they never. And I kind of like that, like sometimes parents can be like, oh my gosh, you're, the greatest gift to the world. And then people go in shows like, The Voice or whatever, and then they get crushed because they're not that great. So I appreciate the fact that they didn't pump me. Um, they didn't. Also, I wasn't really performing when I was 14. It was very personal, intimate. Like I would play in the bathroom. That was the extent of it. That was where that's where my because I just felt comfortable and it was just for me really. When I was 24 is when I started saying, okay, maybe this is good stuff that people would enjoy. But once I actually got out there, they were so extremely proud, and they always told me, "Oh, send us this song and the lyrics." And yeah, they were extremely. It was very nice to see their support and how they were proud of me. Like they would tell their friends, and like they were so proud that he got to perform in Times Square. And I'm very proud that my father did see me. Uh, you know, Even though obviously he still sees me now, but I'm
Mhm.
happy that while he was still in this physical world, he did see me grow, even in my music. So
That's rad.
I'm because I know a lot of people, musicians, even. I mean, okay, I'll give you even an example outside of music, but like Cristiano Ronaldo, like the soccer player,
Mhm.
his father never saw him grow or become the man that he became. So I'm very happy that my father did see me, you know, already further in my journey.
Yeah, that's rad. I mean, that's definitely rad. Because I mean, honestly, I mean, my dad before he passed away, he saw a little bit of me, developing, my stuff, and my, pushing my career. And he was always, my parents were always supportive of what I did. I mean, even my mom, when I was started skateboarding and getting into skateboarding, she would sit there and watch skate videos with me, and like didn't care, and then once I started, TSM Media 12 years ago, they were very supportive, but they were also too like, hey, you better get a job on the side, I mean, but and then once me and my partner got into, our co-owner got into, more to like live stream stuff and podcasts and stuff. My dad never got to see that because actually, when I told him about the contract we signed with the live stream shows company, and he was really hyped about that, but he never actually got to see my first episode, 6 years ago, because he passed away in 2017, like right
um,
on New Year's Eve. And so he never got to see it, but my mom did, and she was very like hyped about it. She would brag to her, not brag, but she'd tell her the nurses and doctors about me, and I would send her like the link of the video and stuff. So I mean, having your parents and having a family supporting you, it's like the most biggest thing in the world,
for sure.
and stuff. So you performed in Times Square. How was that, dude? Were you nervous? Were you like handshaking or what?
So just to give you like the background, it's so there's a concert happening every year. It's called a Shabbaton, so it's like a weekend
Hmm.
for Jewish teens in New York, and like the highlight of it is a concert in the heart of Times Square, like American Eagle, like right in the heart of Times Square. And so I grew up going sometimes to that concert. I think I've been there in 2017, and it just always felt like that was like one of my biggest dreams of like performing there, because I felt like it's like the height of like the physical world. That's like the top of the world,
Hmm.
and but like the Jewish pride and just 3,000 teens, like the youth coming together. I felt like it was like the perfect combination of like spirituality and the physicality coming together. So I felt like it was just a dream. So in 2021, I came to the organization that organizes this weekend, and it was COVID, so it was lockdown, so they couldn't do it that year. So
Hmm.
they were looking for something, to do something, a new song maybe. So I had this idea of taking an old camp song, Jewish camp song, and really like making it from like a minor chord, some more serious song, into something a lot more exciting. So we recorded it and we made a video in 3 weeks. It was out, and I expected it to like just boom, but it didn't go
Hmm.
anywhere. Then in the in the spring of 2021, there was like a major like social media attack on Jews because of the
Yeah.
war. So there was a lot of like Jews were eating a lot of crap on social media. They were being attacked, and so suddenly like people found my music, my song, which was very in your face, like I'm a proud Jew and like deal with it. Like I'm
Hmm.
I'm a Jew and I'm proud, and that's what I'm going to be. So people really found like just a source of power from the song. So that spring and that summer it really exploded. Like now it has like 700,000 streams, which is
Wow.
incredible.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank God, on Spotify. So it really went out, and to such an extent that next year, so this 2022, in February 2022, a year ago, they said, "Hey, you want to perform that song in Times Square?" And I was like, "This is
Uh,
it. That's the dream." And obviously, I was nervous as anything.
were you
I
sweating
want
and everything?
it was more than sweating. It's just like I wanted to give it all. I obviously you. It's just I can't even describe like it's not just an incredible place to perform, but and also in front of 3,000 teens, but it's also like the years of like anticipating it, dreaming about it, and like suddenly it was happening. Um, all I can think of, it was like 3 minutes, like I didn't exist. It was, yeah, I just didn't feel myself.
Mhm.
It was like I was my mission. I felt it was just me, my soul connecting with 3,000 souls, and just seeing like when my song goes like in the instrumental part, it goes like I'm a Jew, 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 Jew. Just seeing everybody jump, and it's
Well,
like
that's
I
nice.
told them to do it. It was just natural. Like everybody was so excited. It was crazy. Yeah, it was incredible. Uh, just I was buzzing for like the whole night. It was incredible.
Yeah, I'm actually imagining all this when you're telling me this story. I was just imagining in my head like this, like what all the people out in Times Square that watching you perform, just jumping up and down like that. That's amazing experience to have. As your one of your first performance in Times Square.
Yeah, yeah. Like I say, you know, hopefully many more to come. But yeah, I actually have. I just posted a video on my website. You can see that performance. It was
Okay.
incredible.
And do you feel that song is what Proud Jew is what got you to where you're at now, or was there another song that got you where you're at?
So it's interesting because I thought that like most of my performances, concerts, I feel like that's kind of my ticket to
Mhm.
get in because everybody loves that song. But interestingly enough, I think that the song that came before it, which was in August of 2020, which is Dry Tears,
Mhm.
I think that one was really. So I think it's a mixture of both. So usually, if it's like just a concert for some holiday, or just some organization that just wants a nice high energy performance, usually it's probably because of Proud Jew. So because it's a very exciting song, it's very full of Jewish pride. But I think a lot of people, like I caught, as in the music business, you there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of
Mhm.
there's so much music out there. Even in the Jewish music, which is a smaller audience, it's just a few million people. Um, I mean, let's say 20 million people.
Hmm.
Even in the Jewish music business, there's a lot of artists, but I think I cut through the noise because I stood out, because I published a very personal, intimate song, that, usually people don't do that. Like, people don't talk very openly about their struggle with grief. And um so I think, I made a big difference with that. And, I mean, the proof, uh numbers are just numbers, but the fact that there's, a bit more than a half a million streams on Spotify goes to show that, it's a personal song. I didn't have a major label behind it. I didn't have, big influencers. It, just people really felt uplifted by it, and they really felt something from it, that people genuinely shared it because they found it so helpful. So I
Hmm.
think it's a mixture of both. Yeah.
And that's a good song too. I do like that song a lot. I jam that sometimes in the car, when I had the windows down and it's not raining and it's nice and sunny. That song pops on my Spotify and I'm like, turning it up.
Yeah, it definitely has. It took us a long time to find the right vibe to that song, because it's when the right before the chorus goes down, it's very
Mhm,
unexpected, that beat, that intensity. um it's yeah, you don't know what to expect, so it kind of gets you by surprise.
mhm,
So I wanted to have that pop feel, but also that emotional intensity to it. So thank God, my producer and I really, nailed it. Thank God.
yeah. And then I heard you, go back a little bit. You said, about social media, about, a lot of anti-Semitic on social media and also too in the news and people interviews and stuff like that. What's your take on that? What about anti-Semitic? Like, what can you educate people about that?
Right. So I think there's two different crowds, um, that need to hear, this message. So obviously, like the anti-Semites that are, you know they grew up with the wrong education. That, that's the people that if you see them in the street, they're gonna punch you in the face.
Hmm.
Those people you can't talk to, because, like, unfortunately, there's no middle ground. And these people, unless they come to the realization, like, they burst their bubble, they're not gonna change their way of thinking. It's a lifetime of education. I think the people that really can be affected and can need to be and have to be educated are the people in the middle, the people that
Hmm.
don't know, that are not sure, they don't know where they stand. So that's the people that we need to educate. That's our friends. That's the people that are, kind of in the middle. They don't know. Unfortunately, because on social media, it's much easier to go the other way, to listen to, the majority of people. So that's the people we really need to educate, what where anti-Semitism comes from. Like, I always tell people about, um, this incredible Rabbi Jonathan Sachs.
Hmm.
He has a 19-minute video explaining. He went to the parliament, the European Parliament, just explaining what is anti-Semitism, like, why are always the Jews the ones that are blamed for. And it's just very, very well explained, and it really gives you an explanation of where does anti-Semitism comes from. So I think the people in the middle need to be educated, understand where it comes from. And I mean, in the most basic form, because people think, like, you know, there, there's got to be a reason why so many people are mad at the Jews, right? There's got to be a, 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 a good reason enough for people to hate on the Jews. And the sad truth is that it's all insecurity. It's all an inability to take responsibility for your failures. And, people blame because they
Hmm.
can't. And unfortunately, it's A lot of people do that, not just the Jews, in general in life. A lot of people, it's not very, I'll say sexy, but like it's not very appealing to take responsibility and, yeah, say I failed. I'm not a failure, but I failed, and I'll take responsibility, and I'll do better. A lot of people don't want to do that. So yeah, that's the sad truth. And anti-Semites, at the core, that's what they do. They can't take, and this is what happened in the Crusades, in the Holocaust, and it happens today. Same thing. People fail, they can't take responsibility, so they have to blame.
Hmm.
Um, so that's one thing. That's one crowd that need to hear that message. And I think, the bigger message is for the Jewish people. It's very easy to feel, to me, and this is something that I had to learn with time, because I grew up observant, in my religious bubble. So to
Hmm.
me, I like, I grew up in Europe, so I did experience a little bit of anti-Semitism, but it was never, nothing major. It wasn't like France or something, because Italians are just good people. They don't care. It was
Yeah.
mostly the Muslim people that, did trouble.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't experience it, you know, but for a lot of people that are not in a very very involved with the Jewish community, or more secular, so they don't feel this support or their backup. For them, it's very easy to just shut up,
Hmm.
and because they don't feel that they have this voice and they have this confidence to say, hey, because they don't know, they don't have that backup from the community or someone teaching them. So I think the Jewish people need to educate themselves on where does anti-Semitism come from, and they need to have a little bit of knowledge to educate the people in the middle, right?
Hmm.
To educate the people that don't know. And I think the more proud we are of who we are, of what Judaism represents, of why we're here, the more clarity we get on that, the easier it is for people. Like, if someone comes and hates on you, and you're like, you know what, I feel bad for you because you have no idea who I am. So you don't take it personal. You're like, okay, it sucks when you get attacked, because in social media, it's obviously it's very different. It's on a large scale.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, we have to speak up. We have to um, be be proud of who we are, and learn what what do we have to be proud of. So
Yeah.
this is one thing I always very passionate about. Like, unfortunately, a lot of our identity has been connected to anti-Semitism, right?
Hmm.
So, oh, if it's something from now, or we try to educate ourselves about the Holocaust, and we got to have the right balance of how important anti-Semitism is, because think about it from a young Jew's perspective, right?
Hmm.
Whether it's in college, which obviously in college is even more difficult because there's so much anti-Semitism going on in college.
Hmm.
So we definitely have to work together with other Jewish people, and you know be strong about it. But I feel like if the only identity that you have is anti-Semitism, that can create kind of a blame or a victim culture. That, who am I? I'm the one that everyone attacks. So we want to be aware of anti-Semitism. We want to educate ourselves and the people in the middle of why anti-Semitism is not good. It's not just because it's harming us. Anti-Semitism is harming the anti-Semite because he's not taking responsibility for his failures. That's that's never going to help the person himself, you know. So this is not just about us. It's any person, any human being that can't take responsibility. That's going to harm him, and in every aspect of life,
Hmm.
you know. So I think it's important to say how important it is to educate yourself why anti-Semitism happens. How can we educate people so they realize that the problem is not the Jewish people but the anti-Semites? But also, we have to have a we have to hold on to a Jewish identity that's not just connected to the Holocaust and the fact that everyone attacks us. Because
Hmm.
if that's all you have, then like, why would I want to be a part of the it sounds like a loser that everyone is against you, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So I think we have to have Jewish pride. We have to know what we stand for. We have to know, just learn more about what Jewish values are, what we have from the Torah, from Jewish. Um, we have Judaism is so rich; it can give you, just a source of purpose, of confidence, of finding true happiness. That anti-Semitism is just one facet of Jewish identity. But like, if your Jewish identity is so full of like good stuff, like purpose, helping others, being successful, all this good stuff, then anti-Semitism is like, okay, it's another thing that comes with the Jewish package.
Hmm. Definitely. And then see, and then see also too, it's not just social media, it's also the media that's putting that stuff out there, like, they're not really helping anti-Semitic stuff, and it's just, to me, it's very sad, and one thing I always remember what my parents always told me, my parents' history was, my dad's Jewish, my mom's Polish, and when they were growing up, those family, my dad's family and my mom's family, refused them to be together because of different religion, or you know my mom was Catholic, my dad was Jewish, and they weren't allowed to be together. And so what my parents did is my dad joined the army and married my mom, and they took off because they were in love. But the family disowned them, and didn't want them because of that, And then down times they finally accepted it and accepted it and accepted it and stuff like that. And then, and my dad's parents raised me more Judaism, but I was also raised by Catholic, because when my dad was gone a lot in the military, when my parents came to ask us, like, we're settled in Florida, we got 3 kids. We want them to have some kind of religion in the background. Well, my dad says, I'm gone a lot, so I don't have time to teach them Judaism or take them to you know to things and stuff like that. And so my mom was like, okay, we'll just raise them as Catholic. But then my dad's parents raised me a little more Judaism. I learned a lot about Jews, and he, a little bit of Hebrew. I don't remember a lot of it, but I was more raised that way than I was Catholic. And me personally, I remember, it's always going to be in my memory is when, I was like I went to a Catholic school, and they were talking about Hanukkah and stuff, and they knew I was Jewish. The teacher knew I was Jewish, and so asked if I can bring some stuff in. So I brought some stuff in, and then I remember the kids made fun of me because I was Jewish, or raised Jewish or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, so I mean, and it was tough, you know what I mean? Like it in the way it not destroyed me, but it I didn't know how to take it because I was like in second grade, you know what I mean? Like because kids were just bashing me because I was different than them.
Right.
And it was hard. And then my mom took me out and put me in public school, and it was better.
Yeah, but that's unfortunately it's a reality for so many kids.
Yeah. And then when I got older and older, and my parents, realized I was more, you know, pushing, or not pushing, but more focused into Judaism and Jewish, living the Jewish way and stuff like that. And they always told me, it's like, just be careful because the world is never going to accept who you are. The world's different, and I'm worried about you. You live in the Jewish way, and you're Jewish proud, and just be careful of what you say to people because there's people out there that's are against you, and nothing ever happened to me, knock on wood. But I mean, I have seen, I sit back and I watch and I see how people act and and this and that. And I'm just like, but I'm still proud of who I am.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, um I think in a way the that view on life, um I think it changed a little bit in recent times because like now, yes, there are people out there that don't like Jews, but I feel like now if you accept, this is one thing I once heard, and I think it's such a powerful you know way of just a powerful thing to think about. So this rabbi who was sexually abused as a kid, he was asked once on an interview. He said, like, you weren't when he called the police and started the whole legal fight with his abuser. They asked him, like, you weren't afraid that people were gonna just label you, oh, the rabbi that was sexually abused? And he said, you know, the concern for what people think about you is usually a reflection of what you think about yourself.
Hmm.
So if you're okay with, not okay, but saying if you accept yourself, then it doesn't matter what other people, if they don't accept you, like that's their problem. It's like if you don't like me, then I know I'm a great guy. So if you don't like me, that's your problem. So I think there's a lot more of that accepting in obviously it has, its pros and its cons, but I
Hmm.
feel like nowadays we can be, especially with social media, there's so many, pages of people just being proud of showing what Judaism is all about and showing their Jewish lifestyle. And I think it's healthy. It's very healthy that people see what the real thing is, and not just, because it's true. If you watch the media, if you watch Netflix, it's so stereotypical, and it's so like, old way of thinking. So I think social media has its pros, that you can follow people that are actually, genuine and authentic, and then you can say, you know what, these people are just like me.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And is that where you came up with the song "Who I Am"?
So who I am originally, was I was asked by a Jewish children organization to write a song about how our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, their biblical stories are not just stories. Okay, nice. 3,000 years ago, this guy started Judaism. Like, yeah, it's not just a story. It's the stories in the Bible are like telling you who you are as a Jew. It's your one line I say in the song is, our stories are a little different, but the lessons are the same. So yeah, obviously we don't have, we're not going on a donkey, and like God doesn't ask me to to circumcise at age 99. But the lessons are the same, that you always have to grow, and like so that was the goal of the song. And I've always been very proud to to show that the Torah and the biblical stories are not just stories. They're not just fairy tales, but they have lessons in them, right? Torah in Hebrew, Torah, it's not just Bible. Bible means book. It,
Hmm.
from Latin, means book, but Torah in Hebrew comes from the word of like teaching.
Hmm.
So the Torah is not just a book of stories, but it's meant to teach you, about life, about how to live life with meaning. So that was that. So I took all these stories, and I kind of figured ways. What can we learn from Abraham, from Isaac, from Jacob? Um, and then in the end of the song, I I wrote, like, to make it really real. We believe that when the world will come to a state of redemption, which should be very soon, we will see, there's going to be the resurrection of the dead, and we are going to see Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob again, in a physical body. So I thought of, making a reel, and I said, hey, I can't wait to meet you and show you how, I kept your dream alive and made it come true. So it really shows you how, there's a link between Abraham and every single Jew, because, they started a dream, and we are the ones that are going to make that dream come true.
Hmm.
And then what's amazing is, I mean, it's not amazing, but like, it's how when you something, life happens, and then the meaning changes. Right after my father died, I was listening to the song again, and suddenly it hit me so, like, in such a different way, because suddenly it was about my father. I can't wait to meet you and show you how I kept your dream alive and made it come true. It was like, oh my gosh, like, basically I said how the next chapter, you are the next chapter of Judaism. You write the next chapter. So, now my next chapter is basically myself without my dad, physically here. So it was very, very powerful.
No, that is true. I mean, like you, me, and everybody else, we represent our parents. Our parents are the ones that raised us to who we are now. We take a little bit of what they taught us, and then we get thrown into the, not thrown, but we walk into the real world, and we learn stuff on our own. And so what we do, we put what our parents teach us and what we learn together, and that's what makes us who we are. That makes who you are. A
For sure.
very, very, to me, I see you as a very successful musician who, and me, I'm doing what I'm doing, to make my parents happy, even though they're not here. I know they're up there looking down at me or next to me, very proud of me. And the same with your dad.
For sure. Yeah.
And it's a beautiful song. I'll tell you that for sure.
Thank
It's
you.
definitely 100%. And you play guitar. Like, how did you pick up a guitar? Did you saw somebody play or what?
So I did see my brother-in-law when I was 13. He played guitar, so I said, I would like to try it. Then I was 14. I picked it up. Got Guitars for Dummies.
You did, seriously?
Yeah, and I sat there and I spent time, and again, I don't consider myself a great guitar. I don't do solos or whatever, but it works for performing, and it works for writing music, with it.
Mhm.
So, that's what I need it for, really.
That's rad. I try. I pick up a guitar, but I'm not the greatest. But when I see some of your Insta clips and stuff like that, you just jamming out the guitar, and I have a lot of respect for people that play guitar, because it's something that I wish I learned when I was a younger person. I can still learn right now if I want to, but it's such a, I think guitars are just, it's just, I don't know how to explain it. It's just beautiful, you know what I mean? Because you got to have like you got to know the tunes of the right place to put the fingers, and you know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah,
it's
I'm very thankful
so,
for,
did it take you a while to learn from playing a guitar or what?
I would say like 8 months until I got okay at it. I wouldn't play it every day, but like I spent hours when on the days that I did. Um, yeah, about 8 months, and kept it was my, again, in the bathroom. I would take,
Well,
like,
let me ask you, were you on the shitter or were you in the shower? No, I'm joking.
no, I like, for me it was like people like can't do anything while they're pooping. Like, I can play music totally, like, it just went perfect. Very
You're like this, like, oh wait, oh what? Hold on, what? That's a tune right there. I got it right here.
very, very smoothly, seamless. But yeah, I used to play, growing up in going to rabbinical college. I would bring my guitar, play it in the bathroom, and then just kept playing. And in the beginning, when I first performed for the first time in front of people, in front of like my friends, I didn't think I was that good, but I think even in life, while I'm learning more about the job world, I'm a director of a nonprofit now, and I realize that there's a lot of people out there. I always thought that people that have jobs, they know exactly what they're doing,
Hmm.
and the more I go on, the more I realize that there's a lot of people that have jobs and they don't know exactly what they're doing. So even if you don't play amazing, I think it's still okay.
Yeah. And then how do you like just always curious about like musicians that writes their own songs and stuff like that. Like do you have like a certain way that you think of your songs that you're gonna write? Like do you meditate? Do you go out and watch the sunset, sunrise? Like, I mean, I know you say you do most of your thinking and playing music in the bathroom, but I mean, do you have other ways that you think of like how to you're gonna do the next song or anything?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's. I was just thinking like, oh yeah, I sometimes I pee, sometimes I poop.
Oh,
No,
so hold on, so you're playing the guitar while you're peeing? That's pretty rad, dude. That's very talented.
no, but it's a very very good question because so a lot of my songs were like songs for organizations, so I had deadlines, so I didn't really have like who I am actually. I wrote most of the lyrics like literally 5 hours before my daughter was born. So my wife was being induced. So we're in
Mhm,
the hospital. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to finish the lyrics by tomorrow. Yeah, we wrote the lyrics then. But usually, like right now, I'm working on my album. Like inspired also from my father.
mhm.
I really want to make an album. I don't have yet a date. I don't want to pressure myself too much. Um,
Take your
but
time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So like my way of doing it would be I so the music, the lyrics for me are the harder part. Like
Mhm,
music is a feeling, so sometimes I'll have a good feeling on like um, maybe on Saturday where I don't use my phone, so I have less distractions, so I'm more in tune. But usually, I sit down in my off, my little studio, and the first thing would be to write down just like what I want to give, like what the feeling, what do I want people to feel it through the song. So like what the concept, what's really like, what is the song coming to answer? Like kind of a question. There's always a driving question, like, and then the song is going to answer that question.
mhm,
Then so I write down a bunch of ideas for the song. Then once I have more of a structure for the song, then I start playing music. The piano really, I play a little bit of piano,
Oh,
not
wow.
nothing, nothing perfect, but it helps me to write down the music. And I have, I make some kind of a structure of the music. Then once I have the structure of the music, then I start writing words. So I start, kind of defining those ideas. So first is the idea, then is the music, and then I translate the ideas into lyrics.
Mhm,
And then I sit down with my producer. We kind of go through. He understands me. He understands what I want to give with that song. I'm always listening to music. So sometimes I'm like my filter is always on. So like if I'm listening to a song, I'm like, oh, I like that. I like that. That piece, that transition, or just it's like a moment in a song that
mhm.
like my filter like, oh, I like that. So I take that, and then I'm always using cycling, so to speak, recycling bits of songs, and then I kind of make them my own and then translate them in a song. So yeah, that's pretty much idea, music, and then lyrics.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I mean, I have a lot of respect for musicians because I try to, write down a song or try to think of a rap, try to have rhymes and this and that. That's the toughest thing to do, man. Like, because you got to sit there and make sure the song goes with the beat and the beat goes with the song. You know what I mean? And the guitars and pianos and the DJ and this and that has to be all together. I mean, that's just, to me, that's amazing. You know what I mean? And I have a lot of respect for musicians on that. You know?
Well, thank you. I mean, I definitely consider myself very lucky that I have a really amazing producer, because I mean, we've been working for 5 years now. So we released the first song in January of 2018,
Hmm.
and we both came a long way. Like we were in the beginning of our journey, like musically, definitely like producing music, and he understands me. I trust him. We both trust each other, and um, yeah, it's I'm very, like, very lucky that I have a guy that I can really share my, like, I'm very comfortable, and he understands me. So yeah, and he's incredibly talented. Like, I'm very thankful for that,
Congratulations, and that's very hard to find someone as talented as that. You know?
for sure.
And you said that you got an album come out. I know you say you don't know the deadline or anything. Do you have a name for it or something that we can keep our eyes out for?
Definitely. So that's another pretty powerful background to. It's going to be called Willow, like the plant.
Hmm.
So initially, I never did an album before. I have 12 singles out. But I thought eventually maybe I'll do an album. Even though these days no one does albums, because, like, just do singles. Everybody does singles.
Yeah,
But I
and
thought
it's
of
easy.
doing like a full body of work. So I thought of calling it Willow because um, it's kind of that representation of pain, like sadness, but also
Hmm.
it's a plant, so it's green, it's growth. So the idea behind it was growing from pain,
Hmm.
and it's also I always liked the willow because, so my Jewish birthday is um one of the customs that happen. It's the holiday of Sukkot,
Hmm.
which is when we use the plants, the branches. And on the day on my birthday, we actually have a custom that we take a bunch of willow plants and we, like, hit them on the floor. It's like a whole. It's like my day. It's like the willow day, basically.
That's awesome.
So I had that name. I was like, yeah, sure, we'll call it Willow. And then my father died on my birthday.
Oh man.
So now, like, the name Willow became like it was just like a whole different meaning, because he died on my birthday, which is the Willow Day. So I'm definitely calling it Willow. After that, there's it's kind of a not a prophecy, but, like, so yeah, that's gonna be. So I'm not giving myself pressure, because I really, like, my therapist was really pushing me, like, yeah, you gotta every day do something for it. And then I realized, I want to enjoy the process. I want to enjoy writing I don't want the pressure. I'm doing it for me. There's no deadlines. So my new plan is to have a music video with a brand new song about Mashiach,
Okay.
which is the days of the redemption.
Hmm.
Which is kind of why Judaism exists, like why we're here, like why
Hmm.
God created the world. It's an amazing, very genuine, bold song about why we're here. And I say bold because, like, even like the religious Jewish artists, they don't talk about it. They don't explain to you why Mashiach. Like, a lot of people are afraid of it because they don't know.
Hmm.
They don't know what it means. Maybe they're afraid of, like, oh, the day of judgment, which is like nothing to be scared of.
Yeah.
It just, God knows exactly who you are, what you've done, and, like, he's not this grumpy old guy that's gonna smite you.
and,
So
and and just wipe everything out. Say, you know what? I'm gonna erase everything. We're gonna restart everything. You know?
it's really not. Yeah, it's really not. I think a lot of uh, just the unknown is scary. So the best way to tackle the unknown or ignorance is just learn.
Yeah.
It's address what the fear is, and tell you what it is, so you're not afraid of it. So that song, I want to have it out before Pesach, so that's um end of May.
Okay.
So that's when I wanted that one. Then my song, another song I wanted out in the summer. It's called You're Already Happy.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah, so that one is going to be a song about happiness. My favorite line in the song is, "I can't be happy if I want to be happy."
Hmm. I like that.
Because
That's very strong.
yeah, because the bottom line is, if you want to be happy, it's already selfish,
Hmm.
and anything that's selfish, it will never be enough. You want, you think, I'm gonna get that, then I'm gonna be happy. I'm gonna accomplish that, then I'm gonna be happy. That's not the way. The way is, know what your purpose is, and then you can find purpose every day, and that's what feeds happiness. You have to work at it every day. So that's why I say, like, happiness. There's no road to happiness, because happiness is the road. Every
Hmm.
day we can get in the zone of happiness. If you think about, okay, what's my purpose today? What am I needed for? Right. So let's say
Yeah.
today I need to figure out, I need to find a marketing director for my organization. I need to record, my version of You're Already Happy. Then that's my purpose today. And that's what's going to give me happiness. So that's going to be out in the summer. And then my album, maybe spring of 2024, maybe.
Okay.
No pressure.
Not around your birthday. I was thinking around your birthday. That's what I was thinking.
Oh, like, well, yeah, but that's in 10 months. So, we'll
Oh, okay.
see. I'm gonna I'm gonna
Take
work
your
at it.
time, man. Take your
Yeah.
time.
So I'm gonna work at it, every day. But I have these two goals, these two music videos, for spring and the summer. And then, if I see that I'm, maybe by my birthday, that would be nice.
Yeah, it'd be a great, and I'm looking forward for the album. Once I'm definitely am, because I mean, like I said, your music is a very inspirational. You have a lot of meaning to your music. Your songs, and it's about life. It's about what your journey and what you've gone through and other people's journeys, and I can feel, me personally, I relate to your songs. And I hope other people do too, or the new listeners that going to go check you out on Spotify or Amazon Music or wherever it's at, gets inspired by it too, because it's very something that we need. Something, what you're singing and what you're inspiring us with is something that we all need.
Yeah, me included. No, we like a song, like we all have a song, right? That one is,
That's a
I
good song, by the way.
yeah, thank you. So the Italian part in the beginning, which you can find the lyrics with the translation on my website
Hmm.
under my music. It's that's how I felt. I felt like everybody knows what they're doing, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I didn't know what my song was. I didn't know why. Like, what am I doing here, right?
Hmm.
And then I don't really answer it. Like, I I I have my another song is going to be in the album, really answers, like, how do you find your purpose, right? How do you find what's your unique goal, like, why were you created, right? So it's a mixture of the things that you're good at, and the things that are hard for you. So
Hmm.
that's like a combination of, like, that's your purpose, that's your journey, right? So yeah, it's I'm just sharing my journey. I'm like trying to, literally, my songs are questions that I have, and I try to answer them. And yeah, thank God I find it that, I people message me, they say how much it means to them. And yeah, I can't wait to share more. And I can't wait to sing. Like, I want my concerts right now. My concerts are more like for organizations. But I can't wait to have my own, like, just my concert
Hmm.
with, and I want people to cry and to laugh and to be inspired by it. So I'm really, really looking forward to that.
And before we take off, where can people find your music at? I mean, I know I said Spotify, Amazon, but do you like what you said about websites, stuff like that? Where can people find you?
So Instagram, my website is, guys, it's probably, I mean, YOSSIRODAL.com. You can find me on Instagram with that same name. That's my name. No stage name. It's just me. Um, and Spotify. So probably like because my name, like it's hard to like to write it, all whatever. Probably the best thing would be either to write Proud Jew on
Hmm.
Google, like you write Proud Jew, it's going to come up, or you write We All Have a Song.
Okay.
So that's probably the easiest way to find my music. You write We All Have a Song or Proud Jew, and my song is going to come up. It's all my website, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Music, and all that stuff.
Okay. So you hear that, listeners? Check him out. His music's very amazing. Great talent. Good voice. I mean, it's definitely worth jamming out to while you're driving down the road on a road trip or something. So definitely check him out. And before we take off, is there anything you want to say to to the upcoming musicians, to the Jewish community? Anything you want to say to anybody?
Absolutely. I want to say that you're a Ferrari. What it means is I'm Italian, so I like Ferraris. But what it means is that your value is unconditional. It doesn't depend on anything. You don't. No one can give it to you, and no one can take it away from you. So your value, which means your soul, it's indestructible. It's unconditional. Doesn't matter what you do. It's intrinsic. It's built in, and it's infinite. You can't add to it. You can't take away from it. So imagine you are a Ferrari. You wake up in the morning, you have a Ferrari, right?
Hmm.
It's it doesn't matter what you did the day before. You can destroy the Ferrari the day before. The next morning, you have a Ferrari fresh. So, some people might think, oh, that's going to make me entitled, because no matter what I do, I'm always valuable. But the truth is, it's your soul is a responsibility. You have a soul. You have a Ferrari. You can do stuff with it. Now you can do stuff. You have a soul because God has a plan for you. God has a plan. Your voice needs to be heard. You have your voice is important. So, if you need help figuring that out, figuring what your Ferrari can do, definitely, reach out to whether if it's a therapist, if it's a mentor, if it's a rabbi, if you're, whatever that person is, a person on social media, if a coach, whatever that is. But your Ferrari is there. Use it. You have your voice is important. Your soul is valuable. Use your value to bring value to the world, because that's the secret to being happy, feeling fulfilled, to grow from your pain, to really make a difference. So remember, you're a Ferrari.
And what color is your Ferrari?
Hot red.
There you go. I think mine is a pure blue.
Nice, awesome. See, all
Well,
different colors.
right? Well, Yoshi, thank you so much, man. And I'm actually I'm glad that we met at the Adam Sandler show in December, because I mean, it's I always look at things like things are meant to be. You know what I mean? Like we were meant to meet at that time after the show, whatever, and then become friends down the line. And I just want to say, I was really glad to meet you and talk to you for a little bit and have you on the podcast. And and your music very amazing and very inspiring and stuff. And I want to say thank you for coming on 101, and thank you for what you're doing to the Jewish community, to the whole world, by introducing your music and everything to everybody.
Well, I'm so glad that I met you, and when I went to that concert, I knew that something was going to happen. Like low key, I'm working on it, but I'm planning to bring him down in the summer for a concert in San Diego. So
Oh, you
I'll
are?
let yeah, I'll let you know about that. But yeah, I'm definitely. I knew when we met, I was like, I know why I went to that concert. Besides for
Yeah.
having fun, but like, I knew that there was a reason. So thank you so much for doing this, for doing what you do, and keep rocking, and keep zooming in your Ferrari, and make the world a holy place.
You too, brother. And let's meet up sometime and grab some brunch.
Absolutely. I love
All right,
coffee.
homie. Definitely coffee too. All right, homie. Well, take care and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, man.
All right,
Have a
peace.
beautiful week.
You too.